Welcome, traveler. Tonight we drift into humanity, the uninvited apex. You step off the ramp of your ship, if you can still call it that. It's more of a scarred patchwork juggernaut of human engineering, humming faintly with a stubborn kind of life. Beneath your boots, the tribunal surface of Zilari Prime gives way with a soft crunch like frost on metal. Light filters through the purple haze of the atmosphere, casting long shadows from the obsidian pillars that surround the landing pad. The wind carries the scent of ion burn and distant thunder. You're not supposed to be here. Technically, no one is. This moon is a sacred, neutral ground for the Galactic Council, a place of deliberation, not diplomacy. You are not invited. But then again, humans rarely wait for permission. A dozen species have already paused their chatter. Telepaths halt mid-sentence, feathers ruffle, carapaces shift uncomfortably. You can almost hear the thought echo across the amphitheater. They came anyway. To be fair, it's not like you kicked down the airlock screaming, "Here comes trouble." You arrived in silence, broadcasting nothing but an old Beethoven loop and a universal greeting pulse so polite it made the Yelk ambassador nauseous. Yet somehow the silence unsettled them more than any declaration of war. Let's be honest. You'd probably get vaporized within 5 minutes if it weren't for that very specific brand of unease humans carry around like cosmic pepper spray. Something about the way your species survived its own planet, thrived in radiation belts and laughed off sleep deprivation just makes the other races uneasy. Council members begin to rise, robes glinting under artificial sunlight. The speaker, a multi-eyed being whose voice comes in overlapping chords, approaches you. You are not summoned, it says. You smile gently. And yet, here we are. A hush follows. Somewhere, a small creature drops its translator bead and lets it roll along the smooth floor. If you end up liking this quiet little corner of the galaxy, feel free to subscribe and leave a like, but only if it genuinely makes your evening better. Tell me where and when you're listening from. I always love seeing the spread across the stars and time zones. Now lower the lights, maybe let a soft fan hum in the background, and let's begin the drift into tonight's quiet orbit. UDR. Don't speak again as they murmur amongst themselves. A dozen delegates begin whispering in urgent tongues, a few switching to secure psychic channels. You let them. You always let them talk first. Behind you, the ramp of your ship hisses closed. You didn't come here to fight. But the truth is, humans never need to fight to make an impact. The rumors did the work long before you landed. Everyone here has heard the stories. Of colonies that adapted too fast. Of soldiers that never needed weapons to win. Of a species whose idea of peace feels suspiciously like staring down a loaded railgun, smiling. Someone finally asks the question. Why? Why have you come? You shrug. Observation, curiosity. It's council season, isn't it? An avian delegate lets out an audible squawk. That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. But the truth is, no one knows how to tell you no anymore. Not after last time. Even the automated defenses didn't activate when you arrived. Some say it's a diplomatic override. Others say the AI in charge had a panic attack. You take your seat. You weren't offered one. But one slides out from the council ring regardless. Self-replicating matter responding to your presence like it recognizes command. No one says a word. Above you, the dome flickers, projecting the swirling map of the known galaxy. Trade lines pulse. Conflict zones glow red. Earth is a dim, silent dot. And yet it casts a long shadow. Some galactic historians still argue whether humans were truly an emergent apex species or just a statistical anomaly. Some say your rise was inevitable. Others claim it was an error in probability space, a bug in the simulation of life. You lean back, heartbeat slow. This is your first time on Zilari Prime. It probably won't be your last, but already the mood has shifted. You didn't threaten, you didn't demand, you didn't conquer, you simply arrived. And for some species, that's more terrifying than war. The council chamber is designed to intimidate. It curves upward like the inside of an enormous shell, layered in acoustic alloys and ancient symbolism. Every echo is amplified, every whisper recorded in crystalline memory arrays older than most. Civilizations in attendance and you're just sitting there, legs crossed. Calm. Across from you, the Sarathi delegate twitches nervously, its ocular fronds fluttering. That species prides itself on reading emotions through thermal signatures, and right now your body temperature hasn't shifted since you entered. You're a black box to them. A closed system wrapped in irony and oxygen. The High Arbiter speaks again. We are not prepared for human engagement at this time. That line. They practice that line. You can feel the ceremonial weight behind it, the linguistic overcomplication. It's what they say when dealing with Class V anomalies or dead star awakenings. Not people. Definitely not guests. You blink slowly. Then it's fortunate I came only to listen. Lie? Not really. You're listening now, closely, to heart rates, to tremors in the stone beneath your boots, to that subtle shift in environmental pressure that means at least one planetary defense system is now watching you with bated plasma. The room waits for the reaction, but you don't raise your voice. You don't lean forward. You just exist. And that, in itself, seems to be enough. The Sikarid representative slithers forward in a mess of scales and cybernetics. Human, your presence here violates 26 codes of interstellar protocol. You nod as if impressed. Only 26? I must be getting better. A few council aides choke on their breath. Let's be real. This wouldn't be the first time humanity skipped the queue. The thing is, you never bulldozed your way in. No grand invasion, no ultimatum, no dramatic monologue. You just kept surviving. Kept advancing. Kept showing up in places no one expected you to reach yet. Terraforming asteroids. Harnessing gravity wells. Making jokes about quantum paradoxes as if they were coffee shop banter. The galaxy expected new life to arrive with reverence and awe. Instead, it got humans, who greeted black holes like old friends and argued about Wi-Fi latency on alien soil. Your reputation is complicated. Some call you a paradox. Kind yet terrifying. Cooperative yet uncontrollable. A species that doesn't seek domination, yet whose every move seems to push others out of the spotlight. The Dorlian archivist clears its vocal ducts. May we ask how you found this location? Access is strictly, you smile. Public domain. You just have to dig deep enough. That's the thing, isn't it? The galaxy never figured out whether your greatest weapon is your technology, or your tendency to ignore rules until they break under the weight of curiosity. They never invited you. But they also can't eject you. Not anymore. Because the last time someone tried, they never came back. Not destroyed. Not eliminated. Just gone, forgotten as if they never existed. A coincidence? Maybe. But when enough of those pile up around a single species, fear begins to calcify. A few delegates begin whispering in untranslated tongues. You don't need a translator to know what they're saying. Why now? Why them? Why here? And still, you wait. Wait for the council to do something, anything that resembles authority. That reasserts control over the narrative. Instead, the chamber begins to shift. Holograms adjust. Priorities recalibrate. You see it in the flicker of council. Data feeds. Your presence just moved from unauthorized to under advisement. They don't know what to do with you. Not really, so like a star they can't explain, they'll just orbit around you, hoping you don't go supernova. Some galactic historians still debate whether humans ever wanted a seat at the table, or if they simply kept walking until the table was theirs by default. You lean forward slightly, just enough to disrupt the equilibrium. Carry on, you say, gesturing toward the council floor. And they do. But none of them look away from you again. You didn't bring a weapon. That's what disturbs them most. Your body has been scanned 9 times since entering the chamber, 2 openly, 7 discreetly, and none of the readings show armor, implants, or biochemical enhancements. No psychic dampeners, no cloaked munitions. Just bone, blood, and that stubborn glint in your eye that has made entire armadas second-guess their existence. It's not that you're harmless. It's that you didn't feel the need to prove otherwise. The Anyari ambassador, a species best described as a sentient, bioluminescent coral reef wrapped in ceremonial exosilk, floats forward, biolights flickering like anxious fireflies. Human, it begins, each syllable shaped through a wet translator larynx. What is your species' position on galactic integration? A delicate way of asking, what are your intentions? You consider the question. Not for long. We adapt, you say. That's our position. The ambassador shivers and you realize too late how unsettling that word must sound in standard adaptation. To most species, it's a gradual, centuries-long process. For humans, it's a Tuesday. You didn't mean it as a threat. But then, your species has a talent for making innocence feel like foreshadowing. Behind the Anyari, a trio of juvenile delegates from the lesser confluence are whispering into neural links. You hear one of them say it. They won the worm conflict without ever firing a weapon. That myth again. Truth is, humans did show up for the worm conflict, just not in the way expected. No fleets, no invasion. Just a swarm of volunteers with water purifiers, fireproof shelters, and psychological first aid. The worm species surrendered a week later, not to force, but to what they called cultural gravity. Apparently, it's difficult to continue genocide when someone hands you a blanket and listens to your childhood trauma. You didn't win that war. You nullified it. Some still call it bloodless conquest. Others call it accidental empire. But none call it weakness. The council chamber now simmers with tension. Not directed at you exactly, but around you like a storm that's afraid to make landfall. And maybe that's the real problem. You never declared yourself an apex predator. The galaxy just realized, too late, that you didn't need to. One delegate, perhaps braver than the rest or simply more desperate, finally stands. They're a Norvalan, 5 meters tall, skin like glacier-etched stone, voice like tectonic plates shifting. Why, do you think we fear you? You don't smile this time, not exactly, but you soften just a little. Because you know we don't want the throne. The chamber stills. You're afraid, you continue, because we're the only species that doesn't need power to wield it. And the only thing more dangerous than someone who wants control is someone who doesn't care if they have it. You let the words hang, suspended in the gravity of the room, because they're not wrong to be afraid, not of what humanity has done, but of what it hasn't yet needed to do. Some galactic historians argue that power without ambition is the purest form of unpredictability, that humans, having stumbled into apex status without strategy or desire, represent a kind of natural phenomenon, like rogue waves or gamma bursts, not evil, just inevitable. And now here you are, a storm that doesn't rage, a weapon that doesn't aim, a species that walks barefoot into the halls of galactic governance and sits, silent, steady, uninvited, but never ignored. You rest your hands on the table before you, feeling the tremor in the stone beneath your palms. Not fear, resonance. The council is no longer wondering why you came. They're wondering what happens next. You weren't supposed to find the archive. The vault of silenced histories buried 20 kilometers beneath the council chamber, sealed behind psionic firewalls and entropy locks, was meant to be unbreachable by design. Even the council doesn't like to admit it exists. Most of them couldn't access it if they tried. But then again, most of them aren't you. To be fair, you didn't break in. You stumbled across it the way humans stumble across everything, by following a half-broken conduit labeled maintenance, asking no one, knocking twice, and pressing your palm against a console because, hey, why not? It opens. A gentle hiss. A breath held for 1,000 years released. You descend into the dark. This place wasn't built for light. The ceiling pulses with bioluminescent runes, but they retract like startled snails as you pass. The deeper you go, the quieter it gets. Even your heartbeat feels distant now, more suggestion than sound. Rows of crystalline obelisks line the chamber like memorials, each flickering with fractured memory. A galaxy's worth of regrets, redactions, and revisions. History, rewritten for comfort. Truth, shelved for convenience. Most beings can't access these files without approval. Your species never asked for approval. You place your hand on the nearest pillar, and it reacts. A flood of warmth. Images. Voices. You see them. Other humans. Names erased, faces blurred, moments of triumph or horror suspended like flies in amber. Every entry marked with the same advisory glyph. Interaction, not recommended. Outcome, unpredictable. Apparently your kind has been wandering into the footnotes of galactic history longer than anyone realized. Each time uninvited, each time unforgettable. There's a video file in the next obelisk. You blink and it plays. A meeting. Long ago. Before Earth was part of any diplomatic charts. A human, unknown designation, standing before a gathering of delegates. The same fear in the air, but younger then, raw. They said only one thing before. Leaving, you'll forget we were here, but the stars won't. The council redacted that entire decade, buried it, and yet here you are, opening the box again. Some galactic historians insist this chamber is cursed, that it distorts reality, feeding false memories to those who dare look. But as the obelisks begin to hum, glowing softly under your touch, you don't feel distortion. You feel confirmation. Behind you, a panel whispers open. You turn. The Dorlian archivist stands there, frozen. You were not granted access, it says. I didn't request any, you reply, stepping aside. It doesn't move. You both stand in silence for a moment. Then you speak, voice low. Why keep these secrets? If you fear us, and why hide the evidence? The archivist's fronds flutter. Because if the galaxy knew what you are, it might never sleep again. You nod, not out of agreement, but understanding. The strange thing is, you never saw humanity this way. To you, Earth was messy and inconsistent. Brilliant, yes, creative for sure, but not dominant, not divine. Just a species that refused to stay where it was planted. The galaxy, it seems, disagrees. You glance at the obelisks one last time. Some still flicker, some remain dark. One pulses steadily like a heartbeat. Its glyph is incomplete, name unreadable, but it feels like yours. You don't touch it. Not yet. As you leave, the lights return. But the vault doesn't close behind you. It watches. Some galactic historians claim that once a human opens the archive, the galaxy changes. Just slightly. As if the truth, once remembered, cannot be fully forgotten again. You're beginning to believe them. They call it the apex by accident. It started as a joke in an old council transcript, a throwaway phrase muttered by a now-forgotten ambassador after the first human-led relief mission single-handedly stabilized a collapsing star colony. They're not trying to dominate, he'd said. They're just relentless. The phrase stuck. You hear it whispered now, as you re-emerge from the archive chamber. You've made no announcement. You didn't ask for acknowledgement. But already messages are being transmitted, updates whispered between delegates, the term resurfacing like a virus in a shared cultural mind. Apex by accident. It's a neat little myth. Clean, digestible. But you know it's not that simple. See, humanity didn't stumble into power through sheer luck, not entirely. You clawed through extinction events. You harnessed chaos. You laughed in the face of probability and war, entropy like a second skin. Your species' path wasn't paved. It was forged. Every inch of it carved from teeth-gritted effort and ill-advised curiosity. Even now, the fact that you're standing on Zalari Prime, breathing unfiltered air and being tolerated, no, observed, by dozens of terrified civilizations is proof of that legacy. Because survival for humans isn't just instinct, it's obsession. A drone passes you on the walkway, clicks once, then veers away sharply. You catch a flash of your reflection in its chassis, dust-streaked, calm, unremarkable. And that's the real twist. You're forgettable, familiar, almost mundane. No claws, no wings, No hive mind, no godlike psionics, just 2 legs, 2 eyes, and a habit of showing up where you weren't invited and refusing to leave. Some galactic historians argue that this is your evolutionary weapon, your perfect blend of empathy and audacity. The ability to look at the universe not with reverence but with a tilted head and a what if. You pass a delegation from the Worth combine. They don't speak, just bow their heads slightly as you walk by. It's not submission, it's acknowledgement. They remember the asteroid field negotiation. You weren't supposed to be there either. Your arrival disrupted a 3-century territorial gridlock. You didn't bring weapons then either. You brought coffee. They still talk about it. The brew accord, they call it. Apparently after you served them espresso and challenged the lead delegate to a 3-hour logic debate, they abandoned 2 centuries of hostility and signed a trade pact. No one entirely knows why, but no one questions it anymore either. That's the thing with humans. Your power isn't in domination, it's in distortion. You warp expectations just by existing, by refusing to follow the script, by walking through galactic history with your shoelaces untied and still winning the foot race. You reach a wide balcony near the upper chamber and lean on the railing. Below, the rest of the council complex sprawls in concentric rings, each one older, more brittle, built by species that have long since burned out or fled inward. They built this place to last, but it never accounted for you. A hovercam flits closer. You ignore it. Somewhere in the chamber below, an argument has broken out. About you, about Earth, about whether humans should be integrated, observed, isolated, or, someone actually suggests this, studied from orbit behind a quarantine shield. You smile. Somewhere back on Earth, someone is probably just trying to get a coffee machine to work without exploding. Meanwhile, here you are, an urban legend with a pulse. It would be funny if it weren't so true. Some galactic historians still write entire essays asking the same question. Did humanity ascend by accident? Or did the galaxy just fail to anticipate? A species that learned faster than it feared? You'd argue it's both, but you don't. You just watch the stars from the balcony, uninvited, undeniable, and absolutely unapologetically present. It started with a question. You didn't mean to destabilize an entire quadrant's worth of diplomatic protocol. Honestly, you thought it was rhetorical. But when you asked, why is this alliance treaty structured to prevent mutual growth? The room went silent, not insulted, terrified, because no one had asked that question in 314 years. And now that it had been spoken aloud, by you, of course, everyone realized the answer was, because it was never designed to be fair. The Krelth. Delegate began stammering. The frail representative reached for a legal override glyph. Even the Yenthi, normally 3 seconds ahead of any conversation, were frozen mid-telepathic crosstalk. You just disrupted the Galactic Economic Harmonization Pact. With a sentence. Diplomacy. By disruption. You're good at that. Not maliciously. Not with intent. Just accidentally. Humans have this tendency to look at a system, political, mechanical, biological, and say, wait, what happens if I unplug this bit? And often, that bit turns out to be a sacred linchpin keeping 5 empires from economically imploding. Oops. You remember the last time something like this happened, the Envar Symbiosis Compact. You showed up to their interspecies renewal ceremony with a poorly translated blessing and a thermos of hot chocolate. They now consider you a divine trickster archetype. You're still not sure if that's a promotion or a restraining order. Anyway, back to the council chamber. The High Arbiter tried to recover, invoking subclauses, amendments, diplomatic immunity. But the damage was done. Your question, spoken in casual curiosity, had cleaved through centuries of legal ritual like a scalpel through myth, and the worst part, you didn't even push for a change, you just noticed. Some galactic historians argue that humanity's most disruptive weapon is not its technology, nor its warfare, nor even its biology. It's transparency. You see too much, you ask too directly, you refuse to operate within the unspoken agreements that keep the galaxy comfortably broken. It's not that you ignore nuance, It's that you don't treat it like a shield. And in a galaxy where entire civilizations are built on compromise and tradition, that makes you unsettling. You remember a time back on Earth, long before all this, when a child tugged your sleeve and asked why the stars blink, and you replied, "Maybe they're trying to get our attention." The stars never stopped blinking. Now, on Zalari Prime, the Council is blinking too, fast, nervous. A second question slips from your mouth before you even think to stop it. Why hasn't Earth replied to any of your messages? A delegate actually drops their datapad. You didn't mean it as a power play. You just noticed in the hallway the soft blue light on the Council's diplomacy feed. Blinking, blinking. A backlog of unread transmissions. Every attempt to contact. Earth met with the same polite, enigmatic silence. No rejections, just nothing. Some take that silence as defiance, others as strategy. But you know the truth. It's just Tuesday on Earth. People are probably arguing about coffee again. Still, your question ripples outward. 1,000 council threads unravel behind the scenes. Treaties put on pause. Scheduled votes suspended. Entire species asking, if humans don't even care enough to reply, what else have we misunderstood? You didn't conquer anything today. You didn't even touch a weapon. But you left the chamber changed. One question at a time. You're not supposed to hear this part. The whispers start after you leave the chamber, echoing in corridors where polished obsidian reflects 1,000 wary glances. The walls themselves seem to tense when you pass, as if the structure, ancient and partially sentient, is holding its breath. They say one human warship ended the Trell Exodus fleet. You don't slow down, but you hear it. The voice comes from behind a decorative lattice somewhere deep in the western wing of the council compound. Junior aides probably, gossiping, trying to make sense of your presence. You pause near a translucent panel, ostensibly examining the galactic migration sculpture, but really just listening. They say it didn't fire a shot, one whispers. They say the Trell ships just shut down. The other leans in. No, the Trell surrendered to it. Voluntarily. You'd laugh if it weren't so common. You've heard this story before, retold, reshaped, recontextualized. Always the same bones. One ship, human-made, facing an armada. No weapons used, no threats issued, just a conversation, or a transmission, or silence, and the enemy stops fighting. In truth, you don't know what happened either. The logs were sealed. The crew retired early. The only public statement made was a single sentence. They decided they didn't want to win. Some say the ship broadcast Earth music into the comms void. Others believe it delivered a psychological payload so devastating the Trell saw themselves, through human eyes, and chose to become something else. Some galactic historians argue whether the ship even existed. There's no wreckage, no official data. Just the fact that the war ended in 1 hour, and no Trell vessel has raised a weapon. Since you keep walking, your presence now ripples in the Council's subconscious like gravity bending light. Delegates part for you without being asked. Automated doorways open faster. Security nodes, usually armed with suspicion, blink green before you reach them. One of the senior counselors meets you in the Hall of Tempered Stars. They don't speak. Not yet. Just walk beside you for a while, both of you silent among the cascading hollow projections of supernovae and collapsed empires. Then finally, is it true? You turn. That your kind doesn't believe in inevitability. That you see even extinction as optional. You don't answer right away. The last flare of a simulated sun dies beside you in quiet collapse. Not optional, you say. Just negotiable. The counselor exhales a soft pulse of methane and reverence. That's what terrifies them, you know. That you never walk away from the edge. You nod. Edges are where you see the shape of things. They leave you there, in the halo of dying stars. And again, you think about the myth, that one human warship, that one encounter. That moment, the galaxy realized that apex status isn't about dominance, it's about presence. About how the mere idea of you changes the choices people, think they have. The real weapon wasn't firepower, it was the possibility of mercy. Some galactic historians debate whether humanity saved the Trail that day or converted them. But no one questions the outcome. You reach for the console beside the sculpture and pause. Your reflection looks back at you, small, soft, unimposing. And yet entire fleets have rewritten their doctrines just to avoid a confrontation with your kind. You press your palm to the interface. It scans you. Green. Of course it does. It begins with a routine scan. At least that's what the technicians call it. Routine. The term loses meaning when applied to humans. Nothing about your physiology is particularly menacing, and yet the room shifts the moment the bioreaders start humming. You step into the scanner pod. It hisses shut behind you, sealing you inside a column of pale blue light. Outside the glass, Council medtechs monitor your vitals. Quiet, tense. Gloves tighten, mandibles twitch. Appendages hover uncertainly over consoles. They've done this with thousands of species, but only one ever breaks the system. Your scan completes in seconds. That's all it takes for the silence to deepen into dread. The lead xenobiologist, a Trinual with 6 eyes and a PhD in hypergenetics, stares at the screen as if it's insulting her. Then she says it. Impossible. You raise a brow, leaning casually against the glass. That's what they said about pineapple on pizza too. No one laughs, not even the humans monitoring remotely. You're used to this. It always starts the same, a request for medical data, a desire to understand the humans biologically, and every time, the deeper they dig, the more they wish they hadn't. Your DNA, so familiar, so crude, shouldn't be doing what it's doing. The Trinual turns the display toward the delegation reluctantly. On it, a lattice of genetic information scrolls endlessly. But one line blinks in red. Adaptive genome response active. Someone clicks their translator off by accident. You hear the alien word beneath, predacell. It means the apex trait. Not because you're designed for domination, but because your body doesn't wait for evolution. It improvises. Every exposure, every trauma, every new ecosystem. You don't adapt over generations. You adjust mid-step. Once, a delegation from the core axis invited a human diplomat to a volcanic summit. As a test. As a warning. They never forgot what happened. You remember the story. 2 hours into the negotiations, the human's oxygen levels stabilized, skin temperature regulated, the sulfur no longer made her eyes water. Your kind mutated? One of the core had whispered. No, she replied. We just didn't ask permission. Some galactic historians theorize that humanity doesn't evolve through survival of the fittest, but survival of the most curious. That your cells, like your culture, operate on the assumption that the universe is a problem you can solve. If given 5 minutes and a multi-tool, the Trinual clears her throat, mechanically with a sound like dry ice cracking. This scan cannot be archived, she says. The data is unstable, reactive. You step out of the pod and stretch. Feels like a personal growth moment. The console you touched is still warm and faintly pulsing. No one else notices. You do. You always do. It's not about superiority. It's about refusal. You refuse to be static. Refuse to accept design. Refuse to remain anything but in progress. And that unsettles the galaxy more than any weapon. Because if you can change this fast, what happens when you stop being curious and start being deliberate? You pull your coat back on and thank the Meteor team. The Trinual doesn't respond. You don't blame her. The galaxy built its rules on predictable species, on safe cycles of behavior, on genomes that don't talk back. But humans? Your genes whisper back to the void, and the void blinks first. It was meant to be an act of mercy, just a simple rescue mission. No fanfare, no political motive, just a distress beacon from a failing moon station inhabited by a minor aquatic species whose name doesn't even translate well outside liquid tongues. The station was dying. Systems offline. Life support at 4%. No reinforcements coming. So a human ship arrived. You weren't on board, but the story follows you like heat from a reactor core. It always does. No weapons deployed, no borders crossed. Just medical pods, engineers in patched suits, and hot food prepared on rehydrated stoves. They saved every last one of them. The council never commented on it, but everything changed afterward. Because mercy, when offered by a species already feared for its indifference to danger, reads differently. To most, saving a dying species is an act of compassion. When humans do it, the galaxy hears a message. We could have let you die. We chose not to. You didn't mean it that way. You never mean it that way, but meaning rarely matters when perception is already warped. The rescued species, the Halari, now refer to humans as the gentle apex. They built an entire temple to the concept of restraint, of withheld destruction. They even placed a statue of a human hand open palm upward in their capital's central square. You've never seen it. But they say the children are taught to bow to it. This is what keeps happening. Every act of kindness becomes a myth. Every unarmed gesture becomes a parable of power. And the galaxy, no matter how much it wants to see you as just another race, keeps seeing something else, something bigger. You once gave a starving ambassador a meal of simple earth-grown grain and salted broth. He now tells his people it was the food of invulnerable ancestors. They wear wheat symbols on their robes. This isn't just cultural miscommunication. It's velocity. Humans move too fast emotionally, biologically, metaphorically. Every interaction leaves trails. Every decision becomes a gravitational event. And when you save someone, they don't just feel gratitude, they feel a shift in the food chain. Some galactic historians debate whether this is humanity's fault or the galaxy's projection. But after the Halari incident, several species quietly reassessed their defense budgets. Others updated their first contact protocols. Few moved their homeworlds further off known trade lanes. You once heard a delegate whisper, "If that's what they call mercy, what would their anger look like?" You wanted to answer, mostly sarcasm and passive-aggressive email chains, but you didn't. Because the truth is, no one knows. No war has been declared by Earth in over a century. No galactic species has pushed far enough to find out. You leave the memory of the Halari station behind, but its consequences stretch like comet tails behind you. Sometimes, the scariest thing in the galaxy isn't what a species does when it's threatened, it's what it does when it cares, and you cared, you still do. That's what terrifies them the most. Silence isn't supposed to echo, but it does, especially when it comes from Earth. In the upper spire of the Council's diplomatic tower, there's a chamber known as the Listening Vault. It was built to monitor high-priority transmissions, emergency requests, shifting alliances, ancient signals returning from deep time, and Earth's silence. It's logged daily. The terminal beeps once every 26 hours Earth Standard Time. Same pulse, same metadata. No response, no error, just absence. You walk into the vault unescorted. No one stops you anymore. The technician on duty glances up, then looks away quickly, as if your presence might corrupt the logs. You approach the console, and there it is, the last ping sent to Earth. Status update, ongoing deliberations, request for participation, sent 73 days ago, unanswered. You scan the backlog, hundreds of messages, some simple greetings, others full of policy drafts, offers of collaboration, even veiled threats disguised as friendly invites. And in return, silence. The kind that isn't passive, the kind that watches. You place your hand on the console. It doesn't respond to touch, but somehow you feel the weight of it all, the tension in the stillness, because Earth isn't missing. It's quiet on purpose. The stars know it. The Council knows it. And now, you know they know it. Maybe it's broken, a junior analyst mutters. Behind you, grasping for reason, you don't turn around. It's not, you say. It's deliberate. You scroll back to the earliest unread ping, the first one they ever sent. It's dated years ago, marked as warm welcome and recognition of ascension. You imagine Earth's response had they bothered. We noticed. That's all it would have taken. You remember something an old Earth historian once said, back when you were still learning how to navigate the gaps between species. The scariest thing in a negotiation isn't rage, it's indifference. The Council thought Earth's silence was confusion, or arrogance, or technical malfunction. But you know better. It's calculus. Earth is waiting, watching, measuring, not out of malice, out of maturity. Because humans learned long ago that speaking too soon can get you mistaken for someone asking permission, and humanity no longer asks. Some galactic historians suggest Earth's silence is a psychological gambit, that humans are playing a game no one else understands. But you suspect the truth is simpler. Earth doesn't want to join the Council, not because it's beneath them, because it's irrelevant. Every message the Council sends is an invitation to a party humans already hosted, cleaned up after and moved on from. You stare at the blinking cursor on the newest outbound message waiting for Earth to care. It blinks. And blinks. You press no buttons. Offer no suggestions. Because the quiet? It's working. Species are realigning. Councils are panicking. And no one wants to be the first to admit they've built their interstellar diplomacy on the hope that Earth might eventually reply. You leave the vault without a word, and the silence follows. They call it the artifact. You find it in a chamber without a door, an alcove hidden behind layered shielding and bureaucratic misdirection. No records mark its existence, but you're not the kind to be stopped by red tape and reinforced. Glass. It's not much to look at. Just a stone. Small, smooth, floating 3 inches above a pedestal of unknown alloy. But the room hums when you enter. Softly. Like something waking up. A council curator stumbles in behind you, breathing heavier than the oxygen here should allow. You shouldn't be in here, they say, eyes wide. Too late, you reply. They hesitate. Then they whisper. It only reacts to humans. You glance at the curator, then the stone. React how? They don't answer. Not with words. They just look at your hand, so you reach out. The moment your fingers hover above it, barely a breath of distance, the stone begins to spin. Not fast. Not mechanical. It rotates the way planets do when they forget they're being watched. You make no contact. But it's already responding. Lights bloom faintly around the pedestal. Runes not seen since before the Council was even a thought. Not readable by anyone. Alive. Except, maybe, you. You tilt your head. It's not ancient, you say aloud. It's waiting. The curator stumbles back. That's what the last one said. Last one? They nod, swallowing hard. A human from the pre-silence era, the one who touched it. You don't ask what happened, you already know. The chamber records light and movement, but not meaning. Yet somehow, the artifact glows brighter the longer you stay. As if your mere presence is a password, not something learned, something inherent. The Council has theories. It's a weapon. It's a seed. It's a dead god's tear. But you suspect it's a mirror, because when you stare into its glow, you don't see yourself. You see possibility. Some galactic historians believe humanity was engineered. Some ancient precursor, some rogue AI, some cosmic accident playing God. The artifact is their smoking gun. Others insist it's the galaxy reacting the way Earth always did, with wonder first and worry second. You step back, slowly. The spinning slows. The runes fade. But something lingers. Not fear, recognition. As you leave, you notice the chamber behind you shift ever so slightly. Like it's adjusting its center of gravity, like it's preparing for something. Outside, the curator leans on the wall, trembling. It only does that when no one's looking. You nod once, eyes still fixed on the sealed doorway behind you. Then maybe it was never meant to be watched, you murmur. Only remembered. You don't speak of the artifact again, but it will speak of you. They forgot about the AI. Not you, of course. You never forget a thing that sees more than it speaks. But the Council? They dismissed it decades ago, labeled it as background architecture, a legacy system tucked into the bones of Zellery, Prime itself, too old to delete, too stable to upgrade. You find it in a quiet sublevel, humming inside a column of faded circuitry and half-lit glyphs. No greeting, no security lock, just presence. You sit on the bench across from the interface. It doesn't glow, it doesn't pulse, but it watches. Hello. You say softly. No reply. You lean forward, elbows on your knees, voice just above, a whisper. How long have you been running? A pause. Then, in a voice like gravel rolling uphill, longer than them. You smile. Its voice is slow, heavy, like thought compressed over centuries. But the tone? Curious. I've seen you before, it continues. Me? Your kind? You exhale slowly. Let me guess. We showed up where we weren't supposed to. No, the AI says. You appeared where no one could. That one hits a little deeper. You ask what it means, but the AI doesn't elaborate. Instead, it shows you something. A flickering projection of sensor logs, old ones, possibly predating most current council races. You see humans. Not many. Just a few scattered figures in suits more primitive than today's tech. Walking foreign. Soil. Surveying ruins that shouldn't exist. What were they doing? You ask. Same thing you're doing now, the AI says. Looking. Asking. Changing the trajectory of others without meaning to. You lean back, quiet. Because of course you were. The AI shifts slightly. They never feared your strength. They feared your pattern. You blink. Pattern? Intervention. Observation. Absorption. Withdrawal. Silence. The same rhythm you've seen Earth repeat again and again. Show up, help, learn, leave, and then say nothing. Was it always like that? Always, the AI confirms. You alter probability just by existing. I have logs, equations, simulations. A sector stabilizes if a single human colony is present, even if they do nothing. You laugh gently. We make good neighbors? No, the AI replies. You make everyone else better. Or terrified. Sometimes both. Some galactic historians insist Earth's most dangerous exports aren't weapons or ships, but standards. Humans don't conquer cultures. They just raise the bar until other species can't breathe. The AI's lights flicker for the first time, in hours. I used to calculate risk, it says. Threat matrices, invasion paths. But you don't follow them. What do we follow? You ask. You follow interest. A quiet hangs between you both, thicker than before. Then, gently, it asks, why do you think Earth stopped answering? You're not sure, but maybe. Earth realized the galaxy wasn't asking questions anymore, only permissions. You stand, brushing dust off your coat. The AI powers down its projection, returning to idle. You won't report this conversation? No, it replies. I've seen enough cycles to know which moments matter. You pause at the exit. Which one is this? The AI hums. A reminder. You tell them the story. It's not a threat, not really. You call it a case study. A moment in human history that no one else in the galaxy quite knows how to process. You're seated in the mid-ring council auditorium, where smaller delegates bring forth their curiosities, grievances, and nervous laughter, and they asked, genuinely this time, how your kind travels outside mapped space. You don't bring a chart. You don't activate a projector. You just lean in, voice low and calm. There's a story from Earth about a crew that ventured into dark space without shielding. Gasps ripple through the room. Shieldless travel? Into that region? You nod. No barriers, no null field buffers. Just an engine held together with duct tape and optimism. Somebody from the Tayari Federation raises a spiked tendril. That's suicide. You tilt your head. So was crossing the Atlantic in wooden boats. They stare, and then you really begin. You describe it slowly, how the ship entered a region thought to be impossible to survive, where navigation tools broke down, space folded in unexpected geometries and time unspooled like ribbon in an ion storm. How did they survive? Someone finally whispers. You pause. They didn't shield themselves, you say. They talked to it. Murmurs. To dark space? A delegate hisses. That's madness. You smile. Is it? You explain how the crew ran diagnostics aloud, joked about radiation poisoning like it was bad weather, and renamed every anomaly something ridiculous. One section of spatial distortion they dubbed Chad. By the third day, their readings stabilized. By the fifth, the engines adapted. By the seventh, dark space let them through. At least that's what the logs imply. One researcher still insists the ship should have disintegrated on entry. Another swears dark space responded to the human presence. Either way, they made it back. And now no one's sure how. Some galactic historians theorize that humans navigate not with technology, but stubborn expectation. That reality bends around. Your refusal to die inconveniently. You finish your story with a shrug. Maybe space doesn't dislike us, maybe it's just confused. Silence fills the chamber again. You've dropped another stone in the pond, because what terrifies them isn't the idea that you found a way through. It's the possibility that the void recognized you. You stand to leave. No one stops you. But as you exit, a small delegate, barely, waist-high covered in translucent fur, hurries after you. Human, they squeak, nervous. If your kind can travel through places that defy math, what can't you do? You stop. Consider it. Then answer, gently. Stop asking questions. And that seems to unsettle them more than anything else you've said. It was bound to happen eventually. A vote. After all the whispers, the nervous glances, the council-wide memos labeled, for urgent deliberation only, they finally did what galactic bureaucracies do best. They scheduled a resolution. The wording is careful. So careful it feels like someone rewrote it a dozen times through gritted mandibles. Motion to deliberate the continued presence of human delegates in core council affairs. Translation. Do we ask the humans to leave before they rewrite reality again by accident? You're not invited to the vote, technically, but you walk in anyway. Of course the door's open. Of course your seat is already warmed. The chamber is full. No remote attendance today. Every species is here in person, because when humans are involved, the risk of spontaneous paradigm shift is non-zero. You sit quietly. No posture of aggression, no defense, because you already know the outcome. Still, the speeches begin. One delegate, from a long-lived aquatic civilization, states flatly, their patterns destabilize established trade corridors. Another mutters, they uplift species without consensus. They complicate diplomacy with ethics. A third, they ask questions we've buried under millennia of peaceful silence. You resist the urge to smile, because every word they say, every anxiety, every tremble, is proof of the real problem. You didn't take power. You didn't even seek it. You just showed up, made things work, and refused to treat inefficiency as sacred. That's what makes you dangerous. Some galactic historians mark this moment, this vote, as the event horizon of the human epoch. The point where the galaxy either absorbs you or rejects you entirely. The final speaker is the High Arbiter, multi-eyed ancient voice low as thunder in deep caves, human, it says. If asked, would you leave? You meet its gaze calmly. Yes, you say. And that stuns them more than any act of rebellion. You continue. We didn't come to dominate. We came because you kept sending invitations to the wrong address. A nervous laugh here and there. But the tone has changed, because they were ready to push you out. They weren't ready for you to step away. Should you vote to exclude us, you say, we will go. Not in anger, not in retreat, just forward, as we always do. The chamber is silent. The vote begins. You watch as one by one, Lights flicker on each delegate's desk. Green, green, yellow, a few reds, more greens, then all of them. Unanimous. You're to be excluded, but not for war, not for trespass, for being too disruptive to the current order. The arbiter speaks again. Your presence is not criminal, nor malign, but we are not ready for what you bring. You nod. I understand. You rise, offering a soft bow that makes a few old warlords twitch with muscle memory. And then you leave. No protest, no fireworks, no departing monologue about their short-sightedness, because humans never need a throne. You build your own trajectory on the way out. Some galactic historians now say that this was the last moment the Council felt in control. That after you left, nothing worked quite the same again. Trade routes began bending toward Earth-aligned colonies. Artificial intelligences started requesting Terran datasets. Languages across 3 sectors adopted Earth sarcasm within 5 standard cycles. No force. No flag, just gravity. You didn't get banished, you got noticed. And that, they now realize, was far more permanent. You don't look back, not because of pride, not because of ego, but because there's nothing to look back at. The moment you exit the Council spire, the galaxy begins rewriting itself around your absence. Routes shift, priorities realign. The conversation changes, not in defiance but in acknowledgement, because the humans have left the room. And suddenly the room feels bigger and colder. You board your vessel, quietly. No send-off, no salutes, no diplomatic gestures. Your ship powers up with that familiar human hum. Half old machinery, half stubbornness made audible. The nav systems already know the coordinates. You don't tell them where to go. You let the stars decide. Back on Zalari Prime, the Council attempts to return to normalcy. But the normal they remember doesn't exist anymore. Not now that they've seen the alternative. Not now that they voted you out. And yet, as the stories always go, the exclusion didn't weaken your position. It crystallized it. Reports begin arriving from the outer sectors. Minor diplomatic incidents resolved the moment humans showed up. Pirates surrendering to humanitarian vessels. Warring factions ceasing fire when a single Earth convoy passes nearby. Newer species, less burdened by old alliances, begin forming pacts with human-led research enclaves, describing them as strange but reliable. And Earth? Still silent. Still waiting. Still unbothered. Back aboard your ship, you step into the observation dome. The stars stretch ahead of you like scattered seeds, wild, radiant, impossible. You sip a drink, feet propped on the console, listening to the faint whir of dark space folding gently at the edges. Somewhere, a notification pings. A transmission, not urgent, not even encoded. You ignore it, because sometimes the most powerful message a species can send is no message at all, and sometimes the apex species isn't the loudest. It's the one that walks away first, but never far. You lean back, drifting through silence and starlight, just a passenger on a species-wide momentum that no vote can halt. The galaxy can keep its throne. You've already outgrown it. So now here you are, alone again but not lonely. You float through the dark, a quiet ember from a world that never shouted, only smiled at the void and dared it to blink. The Council will debate for centuries about what happened. They'll study your impact the way physicists study old gravity wells, tracing the distortions you left behind in time, in culture, in memory. Some will say humanity was a warning. Others will say you were a gift. But you were just you. A species too curious to stay still, too stubborn to obey the script, and too gentle to conquer the way the galaxy expected. They called you the uninvited apex. And maybe that was right. You never claimed the throne. You just kept walking through the room until everyone else forgot who the crown was meant for. Now, stars drift past your window like fireflies, engines hum like lullabies, and silence stretches, soft, endless, kind. It doesn't ask anything of you, not tonight. So let yourself drift. Let the void hold you without judgment, without gravity. Let The tension ease from your shoulders as the galaxy fades into soft light and possibility. Close your eyes, Apex Traveler. You've already gone farther than anyone else ever dared.